Hi, this is Randy May. Welcome to my channel. Hope you'll enjoy what we're going to have today. If you get a chance, would you please hit the subscribe button, click the little bell, hit like, give me a thumbs up. I'd really appreciate it. If you want to make a comment, you can. I'll get back to you as quick as I can. Today we're going to talk about what is a mother worth. I think a lot of times we forget how valuable a mother is. So I'm going to talk about that a little bit today. I took credit apps for 25 years in the car business, and I would ask the wife, "Where do you work?" And she'd say, "Oh, I'm just a housewife. I don't work a job." And I'd say, "Oh, you're more important than that." And then her husband would chime in, "No, she doesn't work. I make all the money." And I said, "Well, the reason you make all the money is because your wife, she goes out and she buys the groceries, she cooks the food, she cleans the house, she washes the dishes, she does the vacuuming, she does the mopping, she feeds the children, she feeds the dogs, she takes them to their doctor's appointments, see that they get to school, sits up with them at night when they're sick, and sometimes you're the fourth kid that she has because you come in from work and drop your shoes here, drop your jacket there, kick off your work pants here, and flop down in a chair, and she's been working all day. A lot of men have this belief that women have all this free time and they're not doing anything. Most women in general work really hard, and harder than some men work on a job. Now, you say, how do you know this? Well, I had a good mother. I have a wonderful wife. We've been married almost 43 years. Also, when our little girl was born, our second daughter, she came down sick. At 8 days old, she got bacterial spinal meningitis, was in the intensive care unit for 30 days, spent 33 days in the hospital, had to have brain surgery, had to come home with a heart monitor on her and different kinds of medication. And when you have that go wrong, of course, my employer didn't want me on the insurance plan when they found out my daughter was going to be a long-term sick child. So, they pushed me and pushed me as far as they could. And so I wound up being Mr. Dad, Mr. Mom. I worked from home for 7 months till we could get everything sorted out, until we could get our life put back together. My wife had a good job. She got health insurance, and so we needed the health insurance. So I was Mr. Mom for 7 months. We couldn't get a babysitter to watch her because she was so sick. They was afraid if she stopped breathing. They also have to learn CPR on a baby, besides know what the heart monitor says and how to operate it. So we couldn't just get a babysitter to come in. So it was a strenuous time for us. Then I found out what my wife was worth. I'll tell you what, I'd get done cleaning that kitchen. I'd go in the living room, vacuum and everything, and then I'd walk back in the kitchen. My little son, who was my daughter, would have left a dish here and left a dish there and this and that and all this, and it just become a real problem trying to get things done. I'd get the laundry done, then I had dishes again. Then I had to run my daughter to a doctor's appointment. I had to take them to a school activity. I had to cook supper. I couldn't believe how much work my wife did. So I learned real early there that a mother's worth a lot more. I used to tell those mothers, if you were paid what you were worth, you get $100,000 a year. And she'd say, "Oh my God." And I said, "Yeah, you work 2 jobs. And her husband says, "How so?" I said, "She works all day, cooking, cleaning, transporting the kids and all that. Then at night, she takes on the duties of a nurse, and a mother again works the night shift." I said, "Are you up at 2 in the morning when the kids get a temperature?" He'd drop his head like that. So we need to know that God put ladies here, and they have a huge part in our life. And mothers are very, very important to their husbands and to their children, and they have very good value. And if you don't value your wife, if you don't value your mother, if you don't let your wife know how important she is to you and the family, shame on you. You should do that. Let's talk about single moms. We have a lot of them. She does all the things I just mentioned for the married mom, but sometimes she has to take on the role of dad. That doesn't mean that dad's not in the picture. A lot of fathers are very active in their children's ball games and their school activities, even though they're no longer with their wife, their ex-wife, and they are, but there's a lot of fathers that aren't. And so it's up to the child, the mother, to fill in. And mom will go to their school activities, go to their ball games, take them to practice and all that because their dad's not around. And they have a real hard job because they're working full-time job, taking care of the home, and then taking care of the children and all their extracurricular activities. And so they really have it tough. So we need to pray for those single mothers and help them out, you know. She does all she can to be a good mother to her children in a tough situation. I've studied marriage for many years, preached a lot of sermons on it, read books on it, counseled a lot of couples when I was a pastor. Even when I wasn't a pastor, I had people, you know, you're a minister, could we talk to you? And I counseled a lot of them. And I found out the majority of the men really don't know what their wife does completely. They really haven't delved into it. You ought to be more thankful for your wife. Now, what happens if dad and mom both work a full-time job? Okay, I'm going to tell you something. I was pastoring a church, and we ran about 45 to 65 people. Usually had 50 to 60 most of the time on Sunday morning. And I had a full-time church, and then I worked full-time in the car business. I worked about 50 to 55 hours a week on my job. I was a father, a husband, and I had all these responsibilities and all these hours. But I did my best. I cut the grass. I picked up the limbs. We have 3.5 acres. I tried to take care of the trash. I tried to help my wife with the laundry. Once in a while, I would cook. If I got home, I would cook supper so that she didn't have to cook supper. I tried to help out and do my part. And at times, when I had an opportunity, I shared a lot more of the responsibilities than that. I'd vacuum. I'd jump in and do whatever needed to be done because my wife worked a full-time job. She worked 40 hours a week. Very mentally draining. She worked a very mentally draining job. She was in insurance business, and she wasn't a person that sold insurance. She worked for the insurance company where they underwrite your policies and check everything, loss and profits and etc. And so she had a very mentally straining job, but she was also a full-time mother. And I was remarked how wonderful she did. So I want you to know that you need to let your wife know how much you appreciate her on more than just Mother's Day, all right? Proverbs 6:20 says, "My son, keep your father's commands and do not forsake your mother's teachings." A mother does a lot of the teaching for the children, teaching them about God, about praying over their food, praying before they go to bed at night. And we need to realize that a mother teaches a lot more than most fathers. Not all, but most. They teach more. A lot of times, some men don't serve God. They won't go to church. So mom takes the children to church. All their Christian upbringing and all their training's coming from the mother. Plus, she's a full-time mom, got all these other responsibilities. So a man needs to pull up the slack and do his fair share of the work. Help his wife, let her know how much she's appreciated. We're going to talk about husbands here. Ephesians 5:25 says, "Husbands, love your wives, just as Christ also loved the church, and gave himself up for her." All right? Husbands, love your wives. You're supposed to love your wife, just as Christ also loved the church. That's how much you're supposed to love your wife, as much as the Lord loved the church and gave himself up for her. You need to be a loving husband and father and let your wife know that you love her. I tell my wife every day that I love her. We have a split level home, so she's upstairs a lot. And so we never use our front entrance, so we live out in the country. So I always come in the back door. That's where the 3-car garage is at, out there and back. And when I come in the door, I always holler up every day, June, I'm home. And she said, oh, Ward, glad you're here. We've done that all of our married life. I always let her know I'm home by hollering, June, I'm home, all right? She knows it. And so I want her to know I'm here. If you need me, I'm right here if you need me, because my wife means the world to me, and I love her, and a husband's supposed to love his wife. We can sum up how a man should treat his wife in 4 words here. Husbands, love your wife. That's what Ephesians 5:25 tells us. Husbands, love your wife. If you love your wife, you will not hurt her, mentally or physically. Men that put hands on a woman and hurts her are despicable guys. You should not beat on a wife. If you can't live with a woman without hitting her, then you don't need to be living with her. I've seen women come to church with black eyes, cuts, bruises. It's terrible. It's deplorable that a man would do that to his wife. God is not pleased with that, nor is the police or the court system, and they shouldn't be. You should not beat on your wife and harm her. God says you should treat her as yourself. Would you go punch yourself in the face? Would you slam your own face into a concrete wall or a plasterboard wall? No, you wouldn't. Would you punch yourself in the ribs, crack one of your ribs? No, you wouldn't. You don't do that to your wife. God is not pleased with that, and you'll never get to heaven doing those kind of things. Don't be abusive to your wife. She's the mother of your children. If your children see you treat your wife like trash, then those young girls will think that's the way they're supposed to be treated when they grow up. Those boys that are your sons will think that's the way they're supposed to treat women. You need to set an example. Saying you're a good man doesn't make you a good man. It's your actions speaks louder than words. So we need to love our wives like we should. So the 4 words is, husband, love your wife. And love her as you love yourself. You become one flesh when you get married. If she hurts, I hurt. If she's happy, I'm happy. If my wife comes home and she got a promotion, then I'd be happy for her. When my wife was working and when I was working and we were younger, if she came home and got a raise, I was thrilled for her because we had more money coming in and she was happy and she deserved it. We should rejoice with them that rejoice and weep with them that weep. All right, 1 Peter 3:7. Husbands, in the same way, be considerate as you live with your wives, and treat them with respect as the weaker partner and as heirs with you of the gracious gift of life, so that nothing will hinder your prayers. What's that say? So nothing will hinder your prayers. What can hinder your prayers, husbands? By not being considerate, not loving your wife right, not treating her right, not understanding that she's your partner and you're one flesh. You can hinder your prayers to God by treating your wife bad. So you need to treat your wife like you should. Treat her really good, and God will be pleased. God's not pleased when you treat your wife really bad. I hate it when I see men tell women, no, don't talk. I know what I'm talking about. Just shut up. I got this. Be still. And they do that to their wife. I used to run that a lot of times, taking credit statements. Boy, it just made me sizzle like a hot hamburger to hear how some of those men talk to their wives. But not a lot of them. Very small, a percent. But that's not good. God doesn't want that. God wants us to love our wives as we love ourselves and as Christ loved the church. That's how we're supposed to love our wife. We don't want our prayers hindered. Do you want God to listen to your prayers? Then treat your family good and love your wife and children and treat your wife with respect as Christ would the church, and God will bless you and your prayers will not be hindered. So if you're having problems in your life today and you've not been good to your wife and you feel like God just doesn't hear you when you pray, He's probably not listening to you. Because He said your prayers will be hindered if you treat your woman wrong. You should treat your wife with respect. You should treat your wife like you do yourself. You should love your wife and care. And when she weeps, you weep with her. When she's happy, you rejoice with her. You want to have a good home for your children, and you want your daughters and your sons to know how to treat each other. This is son, this is how you treat your wives. Daughter, this is how that your husbands need to treat you. You do it by example. God designed marriage to be three primary purposes: companionship, procreation, having children, and redemption. We should have these in our marriage. That, redemption should be there. If one of the spouses does something boneheaded or gets mad and loses their temper, then they ought to be able to say, I'm sorry, I was out of line, and apologize. I know the old saying, John Wayne had a movie, apologizing is a sign of weakness. And they used to say that on the NCIS show, Leroy Jethro Gibbs, that makes you weak. No, it doesn't. That's TV stuff. It takes a real man to go to his wife and say, listen, I was wrong. I'm sorry. And if you did it in front of your children, bring your children in. Children, kids, I want you to hear this. I was wrong. I shouldn't have jumped on your mom like that. I was out of line. And I'm sorry that you had to see that. And let them know the difference between right and wrong. And so it takes a real man to do that. A guy that doesn't apologize because it's a sign of weakness, that's a bonehead. All right, don't take anything to be a bonehead and treat people mean. That's not true. It's a fallacy. But treating your wife and your children with respect and being good to your wife is what God wants you to do. These purposes are still relevant today in today's life, and they're essential for a healthy society and a healthy marriage. Is that you should love your wife, respect your wife, and be glad for everything that she does for the family. Now I want to talk about one more thing before I let you go. Date night. You need to take your wife out on a date. All right? You need to take her out on a date at least twice a month. If you can do it once a week, it would be nice, but at least twice a month, take your wife on a date night. Let her know in advance. This date is going to be our date night. If your kids are too small that they can't stay at home by themselves, line up a babysitter. Get someone, grandparents, aunt, uncle, or you've got a close friend from church that babysits. Get someone to watch your children. Take your wife out on a date night. Take her out to eat. Not only that, buy her a flower or flowers. Find out what kind of flowers your wife likes, all right? And once in a while, don't give her a flower, give her candy, or you can give her both, and take her to a nice restaurant and let her eat and not have to cook, and take her out for a movie or take her for a ride or go to the mall and walk around, whatever makes your family happy. I used to take my wife now every Thursday because I worked so many hours, ran a big dealership, and at that place I worked 65 to 72 hours a week. Plus I was preaching every Sunday. So I was pretty busy. But every Thursday, I had Thursday off most of the time. And on Thursdays, I took my wife up to the bowling alley and we bowled. Because she bowled before we got married and was on a bowling team. I'd never bowled in my life. She taught me how to do it. I liked it. My men at work wanted to get me something for Christmas. I didn't know. They called my wife. They got me a bowling ball, a bowling bag, a rag to clean it up with, shoes, the whole 9 yards. Me and her bowled every Thursday, and they knew it. And so we bowled. As soon as we got done bowling, out to the restaurant we went, and we ate, usually around 1 or 2 o'clock in the afternoon. It wasn't full. It was nice and quiet. We could get us a booth and have a good time. And I spent time with my wife every Thursday. Why? Because valuable time is time spent with the one you love. And if you love your wife, you need to let her know you love her by taking her out and being good to her and treating her good. That's what God wants you to do. So don't forget date nights. Very important. You need time for yourselves, and you need to make time. And every other week would be wonderful. If you can only do it once a month, you say, I don't make enough money to take her out every Friday or whatever day. All right, take her out every other week. Well, okay, we don't have you can probably, if you spinge and cut a little here and cut a little there, you could go out and eat once a month. You don't have to eat at the Ritz or a 5-star restaurant and spend $150, $200. You can take her out and get a good meal for you and her for less than $50 or thereabout. depending on where you live. But treat your wife good. Love her. Give her respect. Let the children give her respect. Don't let the children disrespect their mother. Sometimes kids, when they become teenagers, can say some awful, hateful things. And so that's when you need to step in and say, no, you don't talk to your mother that way. And there ought to be some some payout for the way you talk. You're not only going to apologize to your mom, but you're not going out tonight. You just take that jacket off, go back to your room. You talk to your mom that way again, this will happen again. This is not the way you talk to your mother. And so that they'll apologize. They won't be happy, but then maybe mom will say, well, you apologize, come here and give me a hug and a kiss. She might give them a reprieve and say, okay, you can go on out, but don't talk to me that way no more. Don't be hateful. A husband should back his wife, and a wife should back her husband, and you should work together to raise your children and be kind to her. Women are worth a lot more than a lot of men give them credit for. They have value, great value to your family and to yourself. All right? God love you. If you have a chance, please subscribe to the channel, share it with someone, hit the thumbs up. It gets this pushed out to other people. It would really help me. I want to say thank you for your time. This time, till next time, I say so long. God bless you and have a wonderful day.